My mother asked me to go home for marriage. She said she had already chosen a husband for me, Gutingi. But in this life, I decisively rejected my mother's proposal. It was only because I married Gutingi in the last life, but he told me before I died, I don't love you. If your family hadn't forced me to marry you, I would never give up. Shen Haiyang Kayan Pino, Shen Kaian committed suicide because of this. Xiao Pingping, you don't know at all that when I married you, Shen Shenxiang was pregnant with my son. He was a dead body with two lives, so I designed to make you childless. At this moment, I understood why we had been married for so many years, but had not welcomed our children. I died with reluctance, and when I opened my eyes again, I returned to the day when my mother asked me to marry Gu Tingyi. Mom, I don't like Gu Tingyi. My words surprised my mother. King, don't you love Gutinyi the most? I have liked Gutinyi since I was a child, and my parents know this. In the last life, when my mother asked me to come back and marry Gutinyi, I was so happy that I almost went crazy. But I never thought that Gutinyi hated me so much. He blamed me for making him lose everything, even his beloved child. That's why he told me this before I died. He wanted to see me regretting. At that moment, I only had hatred for Gutinyi. I shook my head and said, Mom, that was a young and ignorant thing. I don't love Gutini anymore. Hearing what I said, my mother was a little surprised. The Gu family wants Gutini to marry you. Mom looked at me and said, in fact, I don't like Gutini either. I have seen him a few times. He was with a little girl, but the Gu family said that she was his classmate. Since you have made your choice, I will reject the Gu family. I listened to my mother's words and agreed. In the last life, the Gu family was eager to let Gu Tingyi marry me, just because the Gu family encountered a crisis and they needed my parents to invest in their company. At that time, for me, my parents sold a lot of shares in the company as a generous dowry for me. It was because of my family that the Gu family's company survived, but he felt that it was our family that forced him to marry me. There is no so-called coercion now, because Gutingyide I have already lost contact. After knowing my feelings, my mother rejected the Gu family. I thought that after my mother rejected the Gu family, Gutinyi should be very happy after all. He had told me in the last life that he could give up everything for Shen Kao and Tian. But I didn't expect that Gutinyi would call me that day. Xiao King, what do you mean? Why you refuse to marry me? He seemed particularly angry. Listening to Gu Tingyi's voice on the phone, I was surprised. After all, in the last life before I died, he said how much he loved Shem Koyang Qian, and he could even give up everything for Shem Koyang Qian. But now he called me at this moment and said that he was wronged. I sighed and said, Gu Tingyi, we are not suitable. Xiao King, what do you mean? Gu Tingyi said with anger in his voice, why do you say we are not suitable? I didn't speak, but listened to Gu Tingyi's anger quietly. Gu Tingyi, I know about you, Xin Shang Kaiyan Qian. I said unfairly. When hearing this, all of Gu Tingyi's anger suddenly stopped. Xiao King, how do you know Sheng Kaiyan Qian? There was panic in his voice. I said coldly, Gu Tingyi, I don't want to care about your affairs with Shen Kaiyan, so don't bother me anymore. I hung up the phone after saying this. For me, Gu Tingyi has become a thing of the past, and I won't care about what happens between him and Shen Kaiyan. On the day I returned to China, my mother was very happy and came to pick me up at the airport in person. After taking me home, my mother told me that the Gu family came to see her every day during this period, hoping that I could be with Gu Tingyi. Mom, Gu Tingyi and I have nothing to do, and I don't want to marry Gu Tingyi, I said. Mom smiled and nodded and said, the Gu family also told me that there is nothing between Gu Tingyi and the little gangster named Shen Kao Tian. But anyway, since he is not suitable for you, let's continue to look. Our family is a wealthy family, and even the Gu family has to rely on my parents, so they are so urgent. After all, without the financial support from my family, the Gu family has no way out. When my mother and I were having dinner, the servant told us that someone from the Gu family had come. This family is well informed. My mother smiled faintly. I didn't say anything but smiled. When Gu's father walked in with Gu Tingyi, my eyes fell on Gu Tingyi, and he was still the same as I remembered. Gu Tingyi and I were childhood sweethearts. When we were young, he always said that he would marry me when he grew up, and I would shyly agree at that time. Gu's father and mother were actually happy, and even happy to see it happen. On the day I went abroad, Gu Tingyi also told me that I should wait for him for a year, and when he had arranged things in China, he would go abroad to accompany me. I waited hard abroad, but what I waited for was Gu Tingyi's call, and he told me that he didn't want abroad. I didn't think much about it at the time, but now I think that he was already with Shen Kaiyong Qian at that time. After that, I still contacted Gu Tingyi every day. I told him about my interesting experiences abroad and my thoughts. But at that time, Gu Tingyi always hung up in a hurry after a few words. Now, I know that I was deceived by Gu Tingyi. When he saw me, there was still a trace of anger on his face. He sat in front of me without saying a word. Instead, Gu's father looked at me and smiled. I knew King was back, so I brought Tingyi here. King, you misunderstood Tingyi. Shen Qian is just Tingyi's classmate. There is nothing between them. I didn't say anything but looked at Gu Tingyi. Under Gu's father's stern gaze, he smiled and said, King, you really misunderstood me. Qiang and I really have nothing to do with each other. Yeah, I nodded and said, I know. Hearing what I said, Gu's parents immediately showed a trace of joy, especially Gu's father, who hurriedly asked, since the misunderstanding has been resolved, will your wedding be held as scheduled? What wedding? I stared at Gu's father in front of me with wide eyes and asked, Uncle Gu Tingyi Yin, I haven't been in touch for many years. I just returned to China. How can I get married like this? My words made Gu's father's face suddenly look a little ugly. Gu's father left with the reluctant Gu Tingyi. King, do you really not like Gu Tingyi? Mom looked at me undashed. I shook my head. No matter what Gu Tingyi was like, I was no longer interested. Mom asked me to relax and let me go out for a few days. I agreed. That day, I made an appointment with a few friends to find a bar. We were chatting, and my friend pointed to the booth next to us and said, Look at this couple. They can't wait in public. I looked in the direction my friend pointed, and it was Gu Tingyi and Shen Kaiyong Qian. Shen Kaiyong Qian was hugging Gu Tingyi and biting him wildly. Even in the dim light, I could still see Gu Tingyi's face. He raised his head and saw me, looking at him with a cold face, and he was immediately panicked. He pushed Shen Kaiyong to talk to me, but the next moment he was hugged by Shen Kaiyong again. This time, Gu Tingyi did not break free, but whispered something with Shen Kaiyong. I saw Shen Kaiyong looking at me with provocation in her eyes. I smiled faintly and ignored her. She is just a little gangster. People like her and I are not from the same world. Why should I be angry? Seeing that I did not react, Shen Huoqian hugged Gu Tingyi and smiled at me as if to demonstrate. I turned around and pretended not to see the two of them. Instead, my friend handed me the phone and said, Look, it's very clear. I took a look and saw that he had just taken a video. In the video, Gu Tingyi and Shen Kaiyang were hugging and chewing each other. I smiled at this scene and asked him to send me the video. My friend was a little curious. He knew my personality and usually didn't like these things. But he didn't ask much and sent me the video. We chatted for a few words and then went our separate ways. After leaving, I returned home. I didn't expect to receive a call from Gu Tingyi just after I returned home. Xiao Shen King, today is the last time I see Shen Qian. He said to me I broke up with him. I didn't say anything but said lightly, Mister. Gu, I have nothing to do with you. I don't mind who you are with. Hearing what I said, Gu Tingyi on the other end of the phone said anxiously, Xiao King, I want to marry you. Do you think it's possible? I asked back. Why is it impossible? Who doesn't have a past? Gu Tingyi said shamelessly on the phone, Xiao King, I am willing to marry you, and I promise that I will never see Shen Qian again in the future. I smiled at Gu Tingyi's words, and then I said coldly, Gu Tingyi, no need, it's impossible for me and you. I hung up the phone directly after saying this. I was too lazy to continue talking to Gu Tingyi. After hanging up the phone, I ignored Gu Tingyi. That day, my mother came back and told me that there was a dinner party tonight, and I would also attend it. In my last life, my parents announced the news of my engagement with Gu Tingyi at the dinner party, but in this life, it is impossible for me and Gu Tingyi to be together again. When I arrived at the dinner party in the evening, a group of people from the Gu family had already arrived. Father Gu brought Gu Tingyi to me with a smile on his face. King, you are here. Father Gu said with a smile, you and Tingyi are both young people. You can have a good chat. I looked at Gu Tingyi in front of me and he smiled very sweetly at me, but now I have no interest in him at all. Father Gu handed Gu Tingyi to me and left. Gu Tingyi still looked at me and said, Xiao King, Shang Quan Qiaonan, I have separated. I nodded and said, Mr. Gu, this matter has nothing to do with me. Xiao King, you said you would marry me before. I listened to his words and smiled, but didn't say anything. What he said before I died in my last life is still in my ears. He didn't love me at all, and he blamed my family for forcing him to marry me. Now he keeps talking to me. Gu Tingyi, don't you love Shen Qian the most? I looked at Gu Tingyi in front of me and said coldly, I know that it was Gu's father who forced Gu Tingyi to marry me. After all, only by marrying me can their family continue to let my parents invest in their company. But our family obviously has more and better choices not to help the Gu family. He said with indifference on his face, Xiao King, you should know that for people like us, marriage is inevitable. Even after the marriage, we can just play our own games. I laughed when I heard his words. I didn't say anything, but turned and left. I feel that I can't make sense with Gu Tingyi anymore. The dinner continued. Tomo's dad took me and introduced me to many people. After all, our family is the richest family, and I will contact these people in the future. And when the dinner was halfway through, Gu Tingyi suddenly came on stage, holding the microphone and shouted loudly, Everyone, I want to announce something tonight. Many people knew that this was the eldest son of the Gu family, so they all looked at Gu Tingyi. My girlfriend has returned to China. I want to propose to her at this banquet today. As soon as he finished speaking, many people looked at me. The Gu family had already spread the news in these days that Gu Tingyi was going to marry me. After all, the Gu family is not doing well now. They must form an alliance with my family in order to get enough investment orders. That's why the Gu family is so impatient. I looked at Gu Tingyi and didn't say anything. But at this moment, Gu Tingyi walked up to me and said, Xiao King, are you willing to marry me? You said before that I would wait for you to return to China and then marry me. You won't break your promise, will you? As soon as he finished speaking, there weren't any booing voices. The eldest son of the Gu family has been waiting for Miss Xiao for 4 years. Yes, Miss Xiao will definitely not let down young Master Gu's painstaking efforts. The words of many people around made my parents' faces look ugly. They knew too well that Gu Tingyi didn't wait for me in these 4 years. He was having a hot relationship with Shen Kao and Qian. But Gu Tingyi looked at me shamelessly and said, Xiao King, when you left, you told me to wait for you and we would get married when you returned to China. Now I have finally waited for you. Are you willing to marry me? As soon as he finished speaking, many people around looked at me with a smile, and I shook my head and said, Sorry, I don't want to. My words stunned all the guests. In the circle, Gu Tingyi and I are almost a pair by default, thanks to the continuous publicity of Gu's father over the years, and even the Gu family has already regarded me as their daughter-in-law. So when I said this, many people looked at me with surprise, and some people even secretly began to scold me for being a heartless person, and they must have met other men overseas and abandoned Gu Tingyi. I listened to the voices coming from all around and looked at Gu Tingyi in front of me. I know that Gu Tingyi wants to use public opinion to force me to submit, but how can I agree? I stood up and took Gu Tingyi's microphone and walked to the stage at the same time. I think everyone has misunderstood. Master Gu and I have never been boyfriend and girlfriend. When my voice fell, many people still looked unbelievable. Gu Tingyi was eager to interrupt me, but was stopped by my parents' bodyguards. I looked at the guests in the room and said, Master Gu has a girlfriend, and his girlfriend is pregnant with Master Gu's child. When my voice fell, the whole audience was in an uproar and even looked at Gu Tingyi in disbelief. Even Gu Tingyi's face became very ugly. I looked at Gu Tingyi. His face was flustered, and when he looked at me, there was even pleading in his eyes. I know he hopes I won't continue, but I still can't forget what Gutini said before I died. In this life, I just wanted to stay away from Gutinyi, but his family forced me step by step. Since they don't want to be decent, why should I be polite to them? I took out my mobile phone and projected the previous video on the big screen. When Gu Tingyi was kissing Shang Kaoyang passionately in the bar, ignoring everyone's sight, and even their movements were clearly visible, many people looked at Gu Ting. This is the picture of Master Gu and his girlfriend in the bar yesterday. I said inferently, so Master Gu may have made a mistake in proposing to the wrong person. As soon as I finished speaking, Gu Tingyi's face turned pale and he fell to the ground helplessly. Even Gu's father's face changed drastically at this moment. He glared at Gu Tingyi fiercely, and when he looked at me at the same time, I saw the anger in his eyes. I ignored Gu's father's gaze. His family was obviously very clear about the matter between Gu Tingyi and Shen Conxian, but they still forced Gu Tingyi to marry me, so they had to bear the consequences. At this point in the dinner, no one had talked about it, and the rest was gossip about Gu Tingyi and Shen Conxian. As for me, I withdrew from it. Dad took the opportunity to go on stage and announce that the cooperation with the Gu family would end here, and our family would no longer cooperate with the Gu family in the future. This seemed to be a signal, and many people said that it would be impossible to continue cooperating with the Gu family in the future. I was picked up by my mother and others. I didn't expect that Gu Tingyi would call me even after all this. Xiao King, you have ruined our family. Xiao King, you will never be as good as Shen Kayang. Since you don't marry me, I will be with Shen Kayang Xiao Ting. We will be happy forever. I listened to Gu Tingyi's words on the phone, smiled, and hung up the phone directly. The next morning, the Gu family was on the hot search, and what Gu Tingyi did was even a hot topic in the city. As for the Gu family stock price, after my family announced that it would no longer cooperate with the Gu family, many of the Gu family's previous partners no longer cooperated with the Gu family. Now the Gu family is in danger. And another thing broke out last night. Gu Tingyi eloped with Shen Qian. When I heard the news, I didn't say anything. I thought it was good. At least he left with Shen Kan and he wouldn't bother me anymore. Gu's father even announced that he would sever his father-son relationship with Gu Tingyi. Because the company was not doing well, Gu's father begged my parents. He hoped that my parents could save the company, but they refused. In the past, my parents thought that I would marry Gu Tingyi in the future, so they would agree to many of the conditions of the Gu family at that time. Now Gu's father still comes with those unreasonable requests, and my parents naturally refused directly. Gu's father had no choice but to go back helplessly. A few months later, Gu's father announced that the company was bankrupt and went overseas. My mother told me that Gu's father owed a lot of debts, and after paying off the debts, there was not much money left. Now that he has gone overseas, there is no way to help Gu Tingyi, and I officially took over my family's company. A few years later, I met Xiao Yi through the introduction of my parents. He is the son of my mother's best friend, and we soon fell in love and got married. We lived a sweet and happy life after marriage. But I received a call from overseas that day. Xiao King, it's me. As soon as the call was connected, I heard Gu Tingyi's voice. Her voice was tired. Gu Tingyi, what do you want to talk to me about? I asked inferently. Xiao King, I want to come back. Please help me. Gu Tingyi's voice on the phone was crying. Xiao King, I regret it. Shen Tongxian spent all my savings over the years. I broke up with her and she and others locked me up. Now I can't even afford a ticket to return home. I listened to Gu Tingyi's crying on the phone, but shook my head and said, Sorry, Gu Tingyi, I have no obligation to help you. After I said this, I hung up the phone. As for Gu Tingyi, I was too lazy to care. Then I blocked the number that Gu Tingyi called me. I thought that in this way, Gu Tingyi would never come to me again. But I didn't expect that only half a month later, Gu Tingyi appeared downstairs of my company. He looked very embarrassed, with bruises on his face, obviously beaten. He took the little boy's hand and walked in front of me. Looking at the boy in front of me, he looked a bit like Gu Tingyi, but when he looked at me, his eyes were filled with hatred, just like Gu Tingyi. I looked at Gu Tingyi again. He looked so embarrassed, so different from what I remembered, and he was almost skinny. He looked at me, and there was only indifference in my eyes. Xiao King. He saw me and shouted anxiously, "I'm back." I didn't say anything, just looked at Gu Tingyi like this. At this moment, he said anxiously on his face, "Xiao King, help me." I shook my head and said, "Gu Tingyi, all this is self-inflicted." After I said this, I turned around and went into the company. I continued to work in the company, but what happened next was beyond my imagination. The secretary rushed in and told me that Sheng Kayan had come. She was making a big fuss downstairs of the company, saying that I had seduced her husband and children, and then was pinned to the ground by the security guard. I frowned and said, "Get rid of her." I didn't like Sheng Kai-san at all, and I didn't want to see her. After Shen Kang was taken away, I called a phone number. It was a mutual friend of Gu Tingyi. My friend told me that Gu Tingyi had a hard time these years. After he eloped with Shen Kian, he went abroad. At that time, he still had money in his hand. He and Shen Kian traveled overseas. Even when the news of the bankruptcy of the Gu family came, Gu Tingyi and Shen Kian ignored it. It's just that after the bankruptcy of the Gu family, all of Gu Tingyi's cards were suspended and his private money was gone. Shen Kian enjoyed luxury and met many people overseas. She often brought other men back, and those men even touched Shen Kian in front of Gu Tingyi and beat Gu Tingyi violently when they drank. His money was spent by Shen Kian, and his family went bankrupt. There was no way out. He could only take his son out to work and rely on a few friends to help him. But he didn't expect that the money was snatched away by Shen Kian as soon as he got it. Gu Tingyi regretted it a long time ago. He told me many times that if he had not met Shen Kian at that time, but was with you, it would definitely not be like this. My friend said. When I heard this, I smiled and shook my head. In my last life, I loved him deeply. But what did I get? Now, I no longer love him. In my eyes, Gu Tingyi is just a stranger. Seeing that I didn't speak, my friends stopped talking about this topic. Gu Tingyi asked us for help, so we bought plane tickets for him and his children, and then he secretly escaped back. My friend said, "It's just that over the years, many people have helped Gu Tingyi, and not only did they not pay back the money they lent him, but they also kept asking for it. So everyone tacitly stopped lending money to Gu Tingyi." I nodded to show that I understood, and I stopped asking about it. But I didn't expect that before I got off work, my secretary rushed over. He told me that Shen Kai casting lived downstairs in the company, accusing me of kidnapping her husband and children, and even holding a banner. Because I am the richest man in the city, my relationship with my husband is particularly good, and I am a good wife in the eyes of many people. Now that I heard that I had kidnapped a married man, it almost became a hot topic in the city. When I heard this, my face was particularly ugly. I asked the secretary to call the police and hold Shen Kian responsible. The secretary hurried to call the police. I went downstairs directly. Under the protection of the bodyguard, I saw Shen Kian. Her face was pale, and the bloodshot in her eyes were visible to the naked eye. She looked particularly haggard. I knew that was caused by long-term alcoholism. When she saw me appear, Shen Xiang rushed to me and said, "Xiao King, give me back my husband and children." I just looked at her coldly and said, "Your husband and children are not with me. You found the wrong person. I have nothing to do with them." Hearing what I said, Shen Kian said angrily, "You said they're not here, Xiao King. You must have hidden my husband and children. I was too lazy to pay attention to this lunatic and prepared to leave." But I didn't expect that when I turned around, I saw Gu Tingyi. He was hiding in the corner holding the child. When he saw me, his eyes were filled with excitement. He had no way to go. After seeing Shen Kian again, he hid. He dared to show up only when he saw me. "Xiao King, help me." He walked quickly to me and said, "Only you can help me. We are not husband and wife." "I can marry you," he said eagerly. "I promise you. I will listen to you for the rest of my life." I looked at Gu Tingyi coldly and said, "Sorry, I'm married. I love my husband very much." After I said this, I turned and left. When Shen Taiyang saw Gu Tingyi appear, she immediately rushed towards Gu Tingyi. Gu Tingyi, you really came to find her. Shen Taiyan shouted angrily and walked towards Gu Tingyi at the same time. Gu Tingyi looked at me blankly, and I looked at him. His eyes were full of despair. Turning around, he looked at Shen Huangqiang again. At this moment, I saw the madness in Gu Tingyi's eyes. Suddenly, Gu Tingyi rushed towards Shen Huangqiang. I don't know when Gu Tingyi had a knife in his hand. Shen Huangqiang, you ruined my life. Gu Tingyi shouted frantically. Shen Huangqiang. The crowd around looked at Shen Huangqiang and Gu Tingyi in surprise. Obviously, they didn't expect Gu Tingyi to suddenly go crazy. After Gu Tingyi killed Shen Kaiyan with his own hands, he stared blankly at Shen Kaiyan. She turned to look at me and said, Xiaoping, if I hadn't been with Shen Qian, would you marry me? I looked at Gu Tingyi without saying anything. He looked at me and smiled miserably. I know if I hadn't married Shen Qian, if I hadn't met Shen Qian at that time, but went overseas to find you immediately, would have been together by then. King, I was wrong. If there is an afterlife, I will definitely marry you. He looked up at me and said aloud. But I shook my head coldly and said, Gu Tingyi, if there is an afterlife, I hope we won't meet. He stared at me blankly, then smiled miserably, raised the knife to himself, and committed suicide. I didn't say anything. The police came in a hurry at this moment. They took away the bodies of Gu Tingyi and Shen Qiang. As for the child of Gu Tingyi, Shen Qian, he was also taken away. I looked at his child. When he saw that his parents were dead, he looked at me with hatred. I shook my head, knowing that the child was useless. Finally, the police told me that the child was taken away by Gu's father. More than 10 years later, I already have my own child. Under the guidance of me and Yi, the child is exceptionally outstanding. I received a call from a friend that day. Do you still remember Gu Tingyi's child? The friend asked with a smile. I remember. I nodded and said, What happened to him? The child killed Gu's father and mother, and now he is sentenced to death. He thinks that the reason why Gu Tingyi and he live so miserably is because Gu's father did not give them money, so he has always wanted to find an opportunity to kill them. When he became an adult, he finally waited for the opportunity and killed his grandparents with his own hands. Now he is going to die too. I smiled when I heard it. Sure enough, an ungrateful person is always an ungrateful person.